welcome to episode 26 of Home Games. No, Patch Notes, the Home Games podcast. You know, after 25 episodes of saying that, you'd think I would have it nailed down. Unfortunately, I do not.
It's all good.
I'm Yazeed, and this is Joseph.
Hello, I'm Joseph, and today is April 20th, 2020.
Also known as 420.
Yeah, that is true. Today is 420.
So just to get a sneak peek for you, but I have a game we're gonna play at the end, which I'm not even gonna add to the notes. I'm just gonna whip it out at the end of the podcast.
Great, very excited for you to whip it out at the end of this podcast. Yeah, 420. I guess that's all. I don't want to make a whole thing about it, but it's 420 and it's episode 26.
You can also see Dog. She's passed out. We just got back from a walk. 5K on the day.
That seems like a not great place to pass out. I'm not a dog, but it doesn't seem very comfortable.
I think what she likes is after the long walk, the tile is so cold that it just feels good for her. But alright, man, let's get into the meat of it all. Home games.
Home game stuff.
What's up with your home games, man?
So we were playing video games. So on Friday we had a conversation where I told you about how I edit these videos and stuff because you're going to be editing the next 5. So everybody watching, if they get significantly worse, it's because Yazeed did it. And if they get better,
if they get significantly better,
it's because I taught Yazeed.
That won't happen.
Yeah. But yeah, and then so we were just talking about that, and then on Saturday we played some Call of Duty, and then realized that we had to record this thing. So I was like, oh God, I haven't done anything. And I think you said something basically the same thing, and it was Saturday night. And so I spent all of Sunday, all of yesterday, working on this crazy list of stuff. Basically because, for reasons I will mention next week, but for the next 3 weeks or so, I can't really do a whole lot of work on home game stuff. I'll still be doing the podcast, but I won't have a whole lot to talk about in terms of home game specific stuff. So I kind of got a large bundle of things that I wanted to do, and I did pretty much all of them in a day, and that was pretty great. And it's kind of a huge list, but generally speaking, I made a bunch of improvements. Should I talk about those improvements in kind of one big go, or do you want to swap off?
Let's break it up. So how about you take 2, and then I'll do one of my updates, and you'll do 2, and then I'll do another update, and we'll just keep going back and forth. 'Cause looking at like rough math, should work out.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So my first 2 bullet points on here are I fixed the resolution and image scaling stuff. So on the previous version of everything, it just looks kind of fuzzy. Like I have a MacBook, and the actual like screen resolution is like 1280 by 720, but then it like double upscale so everything looks sharper or something weird like that. I don't know what my actual resolution is. But anyway, point is it just looks super fuzzy on my laptop, and it looks fuzzy on my desktop, and if you resize the window, images don't move correctly with it and all this weird stuff. So I basically just went through and I removed like the hard-coded resolutions on the games. So like in the metadata for some of them, it'll say a resolution, which is then used by the game server to tell a client when they connect, like this is the resolution of the game that you're playing, so adjust your canvas size accordingly. So I removed all those hard-coded numbers and instead just do a aspect ratio. And so it just says, oh, I'm 16 by 9, which allows the opportunity for like a 4 by 3 or like a mobile format, whatever, where it's like taller than it is wide. So we have kind of a better support for that stuff, I suppose. We can't support like multiple multiple aspect ratios. So like video games, you can, some of them will be like, oh, 16 by 9 or 21 by 9 or whatever, and you can choose. Since it's kind of one game being rendered for everybody and then, scaled to whatever device, we can't really do that, at least not without making like crazy changes. So we don't have any of that stuff now. And then image scaling, I just fixed bugs there, I suppose, because now it actually works. Like on the resize, it'll be it'll actually pull image width and height at every time the resize. But anyway, it'll recalculate stuff, so it'll work in that way. And it doesn't like kind of chunk across and become too big for a thing that is shrunk at a reasonable size, but the image only shrunk at like half the rate, and so it's super weird, and that was what was happening before. So anyway, the fuzziness thing I solved by doubling the render, like the internal resolution that the canvas actually renders at, and then changing the CSS width and height of the canvas, so it essentially double scale renders within one thing and then scales down, so everything looks sharper.
Nice.
So if I have, whatever, 1000 by 500 is my resolution because I'm a crazy person, it would render internally at 2000 by 1000 and then shove it into a smaller thing so everything looks better. So like images are way sharper, text is way cleaner, like all this stuff. It just looks so much better. So that's kind of the first little like resolution and image scaling and all that kind of stuff.
Nice. That sounds so nice. Like just making it even more crisp. I like the basically like doubling how crisp everything looks.
Yeah, it just looks not so grainy, and the text is like readable now. And like if you actually use an iOS device or mobile device or whatever, and you turn it sideways so it's matches almost the same aspect ratio, it actually looks nice. It doesn't look like you need to zoom in on it, even though you can't actually zoom in. It's like a weird. It just looks better.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. Is that in an APR or is that already merged in?
It's not ready yet.
I don't see anything get merged in.
No, so I have a whole thing. I have a whole bunch of these changes that I'm going to put into one thing, but I'm going to do commits. So you have, the little self-contained units of changes, but they're all into one pull request. Also, when we merge pull requests, we should squash them. So instead of merging in every single commit, we should do the one whole thing. Or merge commit. That's not what it was. There's some specific thing, but like when you're clicking in the UI to merge a PR, it'll allow you to put all of them into one commit.
Yeah, there's a squash option. I think it is called like, do you want to? I think it's like a little check mark like squash commits or something like that.
Yeah.
But okay, that's good to know. I wish I knew that yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I saw you're going to talk about this in a little bit, but I saw that you merged the Squarer changes, and I saw that there were like 7 new commits, and was like, oh. We should do that. We should do not that.
Yeah, I actually am not used to doing squashed commits ever. I'm used to just having your whole commit log in there. So I will make the change. But yeah, kind of going to what I worked on. Unless you wanted to talk more about yours, or can we go on to mine?
No, I mean that's all for. Yeah, I can kind of go more technical if you want, but I don't even know what I did at this point. I just fixed it.
Nice. Yeah, so I merged in 3 PRs yesterday. Kind of like the big important merging was the changes to Squish, and also the locking of the package number, like what is it called? The version number on the package for the Squish.js that we use in the project. And kind of the reason for that was the incoming Squish changes do break the whole project unless you've locked it down. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, can we build a new package, and do I have permissions for that?
You do not have permission to do that. I don't know how I would do that, but I have an NPM account that I have logged in and all that kind of stuff locally, so I'm able to publish. But that's not a super sustainable way to do it, so I should probably figure out how to give you access.
Well, I mean, in theory, other people wouldn't be making changes to Squish.js, like the package changes. One of us would be building the new versions each time.
Yeah.
It would come up with a release cycle for it.
Yeah, but it's still one of us, not just me. So you have to have access somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll look into it a little bit more. But once we have the new version published, kind of look forward to that, because that does have some nice changes to color specifically, and also adds unit tests to there, and also the unit test runner. And the other major change was the merged in Square, and part of the Square changes also includes the optional check to see if you can even join the game.
Nice.
So all that kind of is merged in with tests applied, and kind of very basic unit tests, just making sure certain functions are there. I can call a function, it'll work, and then I'll close out at the end, along with a close game, I believe, which the unit tests call. And I think that's kind of like it for this first batch. Then I'll kind of go in on the next round about what I was working on, and then after that, the next one will be like my goals for this coming week.
Sure. Does every game require a close?
It's not required. I believe the unit tests are set up in a way right now that it says like if this function is there, then call the function.
Yep.
It doesn't just call the function by default. But if you have like a timeout, or if you are basically if you're self-referential, or if you are asynchronous, you probably will need to have a close function. But I mean, like, because it's your game, you may also want to add in like other functionality. So your close function is pretty much up to you on what it does.
Should it be called close? I don't know if I have an opinion on this, but asking because of like the add player, remove player. Like, someone might not know that there's a close function that we're going to call if they just, let's say they're not really great at naming their own methods, and they have some sort of modal or something that they want to close, and they make a specific class method for it, and they're surprised by their unit test fail. Or is it on them to like read the documentation?
I think. Oh, that's a good question.
The only kind I have.
Well, with like handle new player and remove player, I think it's called remove player. How do we let them know that they need those functions in there?
Well, they don't. I guess that's true.
No.
But like, I guess what I'm getting at is handle player disconnect is something that I don't really see someone putting in their class unless they know that it's used for something. Close, I think, is pretty generic, and they might use it for something else.
I see. Ooh, good point. Maybe we should... maybe like game close game, something like that. I could rename it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess I don't know what I think, because I don't like the idea of not calling it close. But it'd be like, oh, home games close? On HG close?
The reason I don't want to call it home games close is because that, to me, says you're closing home games. Like,
yeah.
The like server that's running. I think if we called it like instance, like close instance, maybe.
Or like on shutdown or something like that. Not necessarily close. Yeah, shutdown. Yeah? I don't know. It's up to you.
Maybe I don't know. How would you when you're playing a game on Steam, right? And you're like, I'm done with this game now. You close the game.
You do?
You don't shut down the game.
Yeah, but I guess I have trouble thinking of these as real games, but you're right. But like, close is just so
generic.
Yeah, I guess whatever. Really, it's just going to be someone who has a badly named method because close is too generic, unless it's whatever. And then they run into a bug, and then they look it up, and it's the documentation. But I think a kind of prerequisite there is that we need documentation outside of my quick start guide.
Yeah, I will do a video sometime this week. when I'm done talking, I'm gonna mute myself and type that up for me for next week. But I'm gonna do a video kind of going over the unit tests and like where we want to go from there, because I think the unit tests, like if we go over like what the unit tests do, that should be like some sort of documentation, and then I can add into the README for it, like how to add a new game, maybe on the GitHub repo.
I have that on the wiki, how to add a new game.
Oh, wonderful. Then I'll just, in the wiki for it, I'll add some notes of like, hey, these are some functions you're going to want to implement because the unit tests are going to look for them. Handle, you handle new player disconnect, get root, something else. There's like 4 functions that I require you to have, and those are the ones that are like, if you don't have these, like, is it a game, basically?
What about kind of a document that's like, we haven't had this happen yet, but what if it's like, okay, you want to make a game and submit it to us. These are the processes, like this is what it requires. Like, you could fail these unit tests, but if you want to submit this stuff to us, you first have to make your game, test your game, submit your game. And maybe we could talk about the specifics of what submitting your game means, but like having that full kind of flow, so to be like, oh, well, you want to test your games, huh? Like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Also, are we wearing the same T-shirt? Mine's long sleeve, but it's this is embarrassing.
Mine is short sleeve. You know what's very funny is I actually was wearing those whole time, and then today I had to do laundry, and all my long sleeve ones were dirty.
Yeah.
So I'm wearing a short sleeve version today.
Nice. Well, it's the same color, so we caught the vibes this morning.
It is. What kind of pants are you wearing?
I'm wearing red basketball shorts.
Oh, see, I'm wearing gray basketball shorts with orange highlights, so we're pretty.
That is pretty close. It's commendable.
Yeah, so I'm gonna mute myself right now and I'm gonna type up some stuff. Do you want to start talking about kind of like other changes you're working on?
Yes. So I have more changes. I have like 6 more changes on here. It's ridiculous. So the game modal that comes up when you click on stuff, I'm gonna move 2 of these together. So there's a game modal when you click on stuff, like in the dashboard, you click on a game, it brings up a thing where you can create a session or join a session. It looked bad, and so I redid that. I redid some of the colors on it, I redid the kind of layout of it, and I made it look better. But kind of the cool thing about that is that I added the first ever home games animation. So not just like transition of one image state to another for like the dancing guy, like when you click up, down, left, right, or when you hit the arrows, he just goes up, down, left, right. I have an actual, it's very primitive, but I'm calling it an animation. And it's super simple. It's just the modal can fade in. That's basically it. And so you say, hey, here's a game node, and you're going to start it at this color with this opacity. So like transparency or whatever. So basically it starts fully transparent. And then over the course of 8 seconds, I want you to transition from 0 to full on color. And this is the kind of like, I don't know the word for it, but like the chunk of opacity that I want you to increase by every time. So if I say, hey, go from 0 to 255 opacity and do it with, starting, I want to start at 5 opacity and go to 255. And I want you to do it in 25 chunks of 25 or whatever. Then it would do 10 chunks because it would go 5, 30, 55, blah, 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 of the 255. So that would be 10 different times it actually executes the animation. You know what I'm saying? Like going from the beginning of color to the end of the... Anyway, so it just fades in, and it's just a simple set interval, which I don't like because it's super not performant, but it makes things fade in. So I have that modal fading in, which is very exciting to me. And it looks not bad.
Nice. In that, sorry, I might have missed this part, but did you see that was already used somewhere? Like you added it to be used somewhere, like on the dashboard?
Yeah, it's in the game modal. So like when you click on a thing and like you can create a session or join a session, yeah, it'll fade in. I also use it somewhere else, but I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Hey, cool, man. I'm really stoked actually because it's like instant pop-up thing. I mean, it works. It's super functional. I like it, but the fade-in probably makes it look a lot smoother of a transition.
Yeah, it does. It adds something very subtle, but of like animation, like something very basic. Like, okay, I click this thing, and now it actually makes it slower. Like you can't interact with it as fast as you could before, but it feels like something is happening. Kind of like how iOS, everything has like a very smooth animation back and forth. So even if it's slower, it feels faster. Kind of like that. Anyway, pretty.
And you can use that in your games too, right? Like, it's like I could use it on Square, so that like the level transition is good.
Any game node can fade in. You can any game node, because like images and stuff, that doesn't work quite yet. But you basically, like I said, give it the color with a 0 opacity or some starting opacity, and you want it to hit 255 full, full value there, and just how long it'll take to get there.
Cool. Next question: can you do color changes over a set interval? Like basically, like making it go from like, I don't know, red to blue.
No, we don't do that. Not yet, at least. But that would be cool. We could add something like that to like, here's the starting color, the ending color. I want you to do like, what is it? Gradients? I don't know what the word is.
Yeah.
Between the two.
Yeah. Well, so the reason I'm asking is because I could use that in Square to do the color change for like my equivalent of crocodiles.
Yeah.
So that it's like a gradient so that you have like how long you have before the color changes over.
Yeah. It's not, that wouldn't be super hard if you want to implement that. I mean, you can look at the branch. I think it's just big changes, big dash changes, which I didn't know what I was doing with it when I started it, but that's what it's called. And you can look at the animations there, but there's space for other kind of animation functions because they're just functions.
Okay, nice. Cool. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or should I go to my stuff?
No, for those two things, that's about it.
All right. So I'm going to be opening up a new PR probably sometime this week. And it's just kind of some quality of life changes to Square. After I was messing around with Square this week, I took a look at it and I was like, oh shoot, there's some stuff in here that's kind of dumb. So one of the main changes I made was you can no longer like get into the same spot as another player, basically. So like two players can't overlap. And I like that change. I always wanted to implement that change. I just somewhere along the way forgot to implement it. Implemented now, so there'll be a PR that kind of adds that in. The other change in that PR is a change that I think makes sense, but I'm going to explain it. So basically there's like a gray bar at the top of Square, and in that gray bar there's your destination. So there's one spot in the gray bar that you can actually like get to, and if you get to there you hit the next level. The problem with it was that you could just run straight across, get to the gray bar because it's safe, and then just kind of like doot over to your destination and go to the next level. It made the game really easy. So I made the change so that below level 5, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can't actually enter that gray bar. You can only get to the destination. And the reason I chose 5 is because around level 5, there's enough like other like moving pieces, like basically the NPCs moving back and forth, that it becomes kind of difficult just to cross the border. Because basically like each level up reduces the amount of open space across the board pretty significantly. So I felt like around level 5 was when it would make sense to kind of allow you to just get to the finish line and then toggle over.
Sure.
But I think it might be like a balancing issue where it's like depending on like where your starting point is and where the destination is, it might be too easy for you to win. So I might need to kind of make some more changes.
So kind of in a general sense, how would we handle this if it's like, say you weren't you and someone's like, oh, I have bug fixes for my game, or if they're like, oh, I have logical changes for my game and the game is no longer the same as it used to be. Do we have to version the games? How would we know? Like think about a game now, right, with patch notes, and they have version 4.20 has this fix, and we've changed this, and this. We can have a home games version where we have different tooling and different kind of features under the hood or whatever, but a game has a separate version from that. So if it's like, v.01 or whatever of Square had this bug where you can go to the end of the bar thing and then move over to the finish line, but then the devs fixed that in version 0.02. Like how do we have that?
That's a good question. I think that I just woke her up. That is really good.
We don't have to have an answer right now. I just think that's a good thing that brings up this idea of like we have no real setup for that currently.
I mean, I guess we could add in like some information in the meta where you add your patch notes there. Yeah, patch notes.
Yeah, but then you have like a mapping of like version number to patch notes every time, and then the requirement is then if I have a pull request.
It would be like an array. We would make it like an array of objects where your objects have 2 keys, where it's like array, like title and then changes, and the changes are maybe another array, and we list them out, like bullet point them. I mean, just like an enforce form on that object or that array.
And then what's the kind of, do we just trust that their thing works now, Or do we have to go and check out their code and like do some manual testing? And like, what are the requirements for that testing?
Ooh, that's a really good question too. I think unit tests are our main thing, and I think like you and I would probably have to at least open a game, make sure that we can like connect with two people, kind of like go through it a little bit.
Or if it's a single player thing, then maybe not that. But then we have to be super consistent
Yeah.
with those rules like every time. We need to like
I mean, like I think it's reasonable for us to say like kind of like do some really basic QA developer work, like like start the game, make sure we can still maneuver through, make sure that they didn't break the like home games by adding some weird thing to squish.j, like basically like can I get into this game, can I like at least maneuver around a little bit, or like kind of like perform some like basic actions in this game. I don't think we need to check to see if they've like actually fixed their issue. That's kind of on the developer. No.
yeah, but then they're putting it into
So what do you
our
think, like,
thing and our name is like on it. What if their code doesn't even run past the second level? What if someone makes Squarer and it's like, oh yeah, the game breaks at level 8. We're not going to see that.
dang.
It's like we can ask people to give us. That's what I'm saying. We need to have like actual written down rules of like, these are the requirements to actually get into this. Like we said earlier, nothing that's like super offensive and nothing that's whatever. But like, what does that mean? What does super offensive mean in this context? Like we'd have to. This is like a larger question, I guess. We should probably think about it, because if someone wants to submit something, I don't want that person to be like, oh well, those guys just play the game, and if they don't like it, then they say no or whatever. Like we need to have rules, and like ask someone, hey, how are you fulfilling each of these rules? And it's like, prove to us that we can do this. Like how would we? Our requirement is to get to maneuver around. How would we do that? What if your game's point and click? Do we have to have some sort of like tell us all the secrets to the puzzle before we could? You know what I mean? Like we have to be QA people, but like how far do we go?
I think okay, so I think there needs to be a really basic checklist of like, can you get into the game, like like really basic like QA stuff. I think in terms of like where to draw the line with a game, like in general, I think you and I would just have to like sit down and hash that out a little bit and come up with like some terms of service almost of like, if you're committing a game to our repo, you have to admit, like you have to agree to like certain things. Like you have to say like, my game doesn't have sexually graphic information, or like whatever, however we choose to.
Yeah, but then what's the punishment for breaking that? It's like, it's just us saying like, hey, please don't be a jerk.
Well, I think I mean, there wouldn't really be like a punishment. It's more like what is it called? Something faith.
Good faith.
Good faith, like a good faith thing. Like like, hey, like these are the things we're gonna like not allow. Please don't add them into your game. Because I mean, like I'm sure like somebody could add like a series of sprites put together in a certain way, like makes a ding dong. I don't know. Like, there's no way you and I are gonna like sit down and be like, can we make this game sexually explicit? I think it would be like if it's obvious, and I don't even know if like how, like where would we draw the line as sexually explicit or anything like that. I think it's more of like, I'm using that as an example, but I think that for like you and me, it needs to be like passes unit tests, code looks reasonable. Like I'm not gonna open the code and see the N word as a variable name. Like I don't want that in a code base.
Not that I would ever do that. I don't know. It's like not even.
No. I'm not saying you. I'm saying like a rando, like random person. They're submitting code to us.
Yeah.
They have a variable name as the N word, and you and I are going through and just looking through it real quick. Like I think we should not allow that.
Yeah.
We should probably like request to change this variable name, or you don't get it in. And then like like code looks good functionally, but like seems like it should work. The game starts, we can do some simple stuff. They didn't break like the rest of home games. I think that's kind of like the best we can do for right now until we. I mean, like like if 10 years from now it's like popping off with like hundreds like Roblox, and they're like randoms, like just keep piling games in there. I think we maybe have to like I don't know, like hire a QA person whose like the job is to like come up with some criteria for us.
Yeah, I was just thinking that like if this ever actually becomes popular in any way, like currently right now we're limited by the time that we just have to build home game stuff, and that's already very limited. And if we ever get into this like moderation QA reviewer type role, we'll have no time for anything else. It'll be like, oh, what did you work on for home games this week? Oh, nothing. I read 4 pull requests and they all had racial slurs in them. See you next week on the Patch Notes podcast.
I wonder how Roblox does it. I mean, there isn't like code committal, but it's like anyone can make a game. Do they just have like a good faith terms of service? Like your game isn't gonna break our terms of service basically, and if it does, we're gonna pull it. Like what do they do? How do they handle it? I think we should look into that because I think that's like the most similar thing I can think of to like what home games is. I mean, home games is like even one step further where it's like Roblox is like your game has like these pieces. It doesn't have additional code. It's just like it's kind of like Scratch.
Yeah,
if you remember Scratch from like high school. Whereas like ours is like here's a base and a framework and you can write anything because it's JavaScript. Like that's a way bigger open thing, but I think Roblox is like the most similar. So I would just take some time to like research that maybe at some point, see how they handle it.
Yeah, well, I guess limiting the tool set significantly helps. Like if someone can't upload an image, for example, then that takes away a lot of it.
Do we want them to not be able
No,
to
I don't want it.
And they don't even need...
I was going to say, I don't want those limitations at all. That's like the whole point of this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like we had that whole conversation about, needing a legal team like 10 episodes ago about, how crazy this stuff might be. Anyway, and then thinking about like...
Well, I think...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think like if we added like a report game feature, like, hey, people can report your game, and if we get a report and it seems like we're going to look into it, your game might be pulled because it broke our terms of service. It's like if you have the N-word in pictures in your game and somebody reports that and like I'm reviewing it, there's a good chance I'm going to be like, that's not really cool, dude. Like I'm going to pull your game until you fix it.
Well, if we have these games, if we have the rules like solidified in such a way where we can actually write them, and then assuming the rules will change over time or whatever, but like we write down the rules, you could in some way automate that stuff. If we say that you cannot have swear words, which swear words can't you have? That we can like have a little enumeration of it, like a thing like don't put these words. But then us doing that allows us to have a script that will check those words. I mean, it's kind of like this thing of trying to automate as much as possible and then realizing at the end of the day people try to get around it.
Yeah. That's what I was saying, like maybe we should have like a report feature too. So it's like, because you and I can do like basic moderation of like code is not weird, but also like if somebody takes like a picture of an N and then an I and then 2 G's and then an E and the rest. So it's like, and then they put it up on the screen. That's like the opening thing for their game. You like 2 levels in, you and I might not get to 2 levels in when we're looking it over because when we're kind of strapped for time in general. It's like like we look at like level 1, we can move around, we can do basic stuff. We're like cool. Now we're relying on other people playing that game and then reporting it to be like level 2. There's just the N word like big across the screen, and then you and I need to go and look at that and be like, yeah, they actually do just put the N-word big across the screen. Then we pull the game. Then we say at that point, like, you broke terms of service. Your game's pulled. Your 2 choices. It can either remain pulled off of home games proper, or you can put in a pull request and we'll review it. But we'll be more strict the second time. We'll actually like check to see. You know what I mean? Like, if you broke terms of service the first time, we probably need to guarantee. Like, we need to look at that you are resolving the problem that broke terms of service, basically.
What's the process for removing a game then? Is it reverting the commit, or should we have some other way to specifically, basically like the code is still there, but we disable it from being rendered in the game?
I think we gotta pull the code out.
But what if the code touches some other thing that was like old? There's like a whole process there. I mean,
that's the problem. But I think you or me needs to sit down and be like, this game broke terms of service, has to be pulled, and we remove the code. And whatever fallout that comes from, we need to fix it. We need to do it like as quickly as we can. But maybe we have like a toggleable thing. Like maybe we have like, I don't know, like a MongoDB or something. Like, it's stupid, but like, you know, like the equivalent of like a MongoDB where it's just like what games are available. But at that point, I think that's kind of like against the idea of home games, where we have now like a server of all of the game titles and whether they're active or inactive, and that becomes like overhead.
I don't want that.
So I think it just needs to be like a game broke terms of service when Joseph and I have a chance. Joseph or I have a chance. I guess it has to be both of us because one of us needs to review the change. But like, the game broke terms of service. One of us is gonna sit down and like pull the game. The other one has to review that change to make sure we didn't break anything else. Commit goes through, and we post on Twitter saying like, game was pulled, had some offensive content. Here's an updated version, like without the game. If you want to repull it, if you want to like repull home games, or like we recommend like, you know, you update your version.
Yeah, that's another question. How do people update? Because they'd have to. We don't have any kind of an updater thing right now. The assumption is that you just git pull, or download the latest binary. But
I think. I think we just have to post on Twitter, and then if somebody complains, we say like we post on Twitter.
But then, yeah, at the end of the day, if something like gets removed from our stuff, I totally want someone to be able to run like a bootleg home games thing on their own. It's like, yo, I got that whatever, like disqualified version or whatever.
No. You can. I think that's 100%. Like, if you just don't pull the most recent version, or if you fork from before like, you can go back one commit, make a fork from there. Also, it's in GitHub, so there's like literally a commit log of what we removed. So you just go in there, take a look at the commit, then just copy into yours. Like, you can do that if you really wanted.
Yeah.
You know, the N-word in your game, like, that's cool. You can make a fork of home games, but like, I think home games proper, we need to say like, when we remove a game, we post on Twitter. That's like I think that'd be like, for right now, how we handle it. And then if eventually we get to the point where like the like binaries, we somehow get it to like auto update, and then we have some like recommended, like, when you start home games, maybe we check to see if there was a more recent commit than what you're running on. But that's, you know, running a git status on someone's machine.
Or making an HTTP request to a service that we run.
I mean, again, like,
that's a cost, but that seems like a better way to do it. Like if we're gonna have that weird centralized power or whatever, we should own those services ourselves, but not require that they be used in any way. Like, if you don't want to check against the latest version server or whatever, like, yeah, keep running your busted old version and it should still work.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
But maybe we can both think about this more, and then it'll be like our topic of discussion next week, because I won't have many work things to think about or talk about.
Yeah, let me mute myself real quick and I'll go over it. And I'll add it to my notes for next week.
While Yazeed's doing that, I'm going to say words, because it'll make it easier on him to not have to edit this part out. And I won't say anything that would get me in trouble. Yazeed is such a good guy. So nice.
Thank you. You could actually go to your stuff, because that was the end of one of my sections.
Okay.
If you wanted to.
So, next up, I have home names. It's the Home Games name service. It's their first ever Home Games like microservice, I guess, that runs within the same kind of thing. So, to kind of take a step back, we talked about this several episodes ago about needing some sort of data store or something for game or for player names, because since everything is moving between different game servers, and everything, like whenever you join a new socket server, it creates a new player object, because technically you're disconnecting and then reconnecting to another server. So if I have player ID 1 and I say my name is Joseph, and then it's like, okay, cool, player.name is Joseph. I then go into a game from the dashboard, and it's like, well, player 1 just disconnected. Oh, hey, and then player 1 just connected, and it's player 1 because it's reallocating the ID that it just got rid of. So it's like, okay, well, player 1's a new player because I just deleted whoever was there before. So now your name is randomly generated. It doesn't remember that I'm Joseph. So the browser remembers its own ID. So, like, it's part of the handshake at the start of the game. It's like, client is like, hey, server, I'm ready. Server's like, cool, here is your player ID, and then here's like some information about the game. And the client says, cool, here's an acknowledgement basically of my player ID. So then the server's like, good. So the browser, if it knows its own player ID, when it goes to that next server, it can be like, hey, I'm player ID 1. And it'll be like, oh, it needs to be like, oh, I just had a player ID 1 who just disconnected, but there's info here for you. You know that you're player ID 1. So here's the name that you just had. And it'll reuse that same name instead of generating another one. The problem is that the socket server runs on its own process. So we don't have any sort of shared memory that everybody can use because they're all separate processes. We can do something like writing to a file, but that's kind of nasty. So I don't want to do that. I want to just keep everything in memory, not need anything like a file lock or anything crazy like that. So also just trying to write to the local disk as little as possible. So it's essentially just another HTTP server, not WebSocket, just pure HTTP, making it accepts gets and posts to, port, like server, whatever thing, and then it's on its own port, and then, slash the ID, and then you either make a get to get the dictionary or object that was stored there of player info, or you post to store new player info. And since it's an HTTP server running as just one thing, all these other game instances are talking to it to tell it about someone's new name and to retrieve someone's old info.
Nice. Okay, that makes sense. And that stores like arbitrary information, or are we forcing?
It's currently just names. That's why I'm calling it home names, but it's obviously a stupid name. So it should just store player info in general, but I don't know what I would call it. Like, you can't be cute about player info.
I think keeping it named home names is good. I like
Sure.
the name. I was just curious if you could store additional information in there basically.
Yeah, it's just an object.
Could I store? I can store arbitrary information in there, so I could store a whole game state.
That's a whole other thing, but I guess technically on some level you could. I don't think it's intended to be used like that. It's just some arbitrary key value store. It's basically just a key value thing.
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of abuse of it, even though there's no real rules that say you can't do it. I mean, I literally just made it, I don't know what it's going to be doing. Mm-hmm. But we had the need to get that game info, so that's what we have now. I tested that and, kind of going into this other thing I've been working on. A lot of stuff I did yesterday. But we've talked a few times about wanting a home button, a consistent home button. So if you think about like an iPhone or an Android or like basically any modern technical thing, there's a button for you to always go to some home state. It's like your desktop or your home screen or your whatever, but like it's always easy to have that one kind of go-to simple, I know I can click this and get back to the same state every time. So we needed to have some sort of way to do that in home games, and my idea was initially just to have like a little clickable logo, and like in the draw test we have that. In the top left there's the hideous looking house thing that I drew. That's like a home button, but it's only in...
It's not bad.
It's not great. It's not great. And that's in the corner, and you can click it, and it'll go home. And that's what you were talking about last week with like the player receive update 570. Like, what is that? That's going home. So I spent some time thinking about how I wanted to actually implement that, because the rendering stuff is all done by doing an in-order traversal on your tree, on your root. So if I have something in like the top left over here, and then something else in the bottom right over here, and this thing is in the same position, it'll eat over this. So if I have a home button, I always need it to be like z-indexed to the front. We talked about this a long time ago. And I argued against making z-indexes because that kind of goes against, it's essentially, yes, I have a tree, but actually read it in this order, which is not super efficient and doesn't seem to be, like, you already have one order implied in your tree. So I was thinking about how we were going to do that, and then for a time I was thinking, I can always just like smush in a home button at the end there, like at the end of their tree, take their root and find the last one, like go right until I can't anymore, and then sticking it at the end. But I was like, that sounds super dumb. And I actually had it working for like 5 minutes, even though I thought it sounded super dumb. And then I realized I need to do something else. Like, I think I might have even mentioned this before, but the idea of taking the player's root, and instead of using that as the actual root, you have like a home games root sitting above it. And then the player or the game root is like a child of it. It doesn't know that. But if I just say, hey, Squisher, render from the home games root, then that means everything in the game over here will get whatever it needs to do. And as long as I put in a child after this in order, then everything I put will always take precedent over the other stuff. I'll render over whatever it is. So that's what I did. There's a home games root now, which has some stuff, some information in it, and then it has the game tree as a left or whatever, its first child. And that all does its own stuff. But in the home games root as a child to, after that one is in the top left, there's always a home button, and it always does the clicking to go back stuff. And if you click it when you're on the dashboard, it brings up like a home game settings menu. So it'll tell you the version, which we don't have yet, but it has your name and allows you to change it, and that'll persist between other games. And that's where I'll add stuff like display frame rate and whatever other home game settings stuff in the future. But it's a home button, and when you click the home button on the home screen, it brings you settings.
Amazing, dude. That's super cool. Nice job.
Thank you. It's like an aha moment to get it just going, because if it's doing an in order thing, like just render after.
That's awesome, man.
I had some hacks to get that to work, so that's kind of why it's not in PR yet. There's some spaghetti going back and forth and all that, kind of like I did previously, so I have to figure out how to clean it up, but yeah, very exciting.
Very nice. Also, I just realized, for people who don't know what a PR is, it's called a pull request through Git. We throw that term around a lot, but it basically just means that Joseph's putting something out for me to review, or for, I suppose, anyone to review, but like I'm specifically going to review it.
Yeah.
And give them the okay to merge it.
Yeah, there's a master branch of home games where it should ideally have the current up-to-date, like approved version by us. It's like our main branch. A branch is just version, basically, like it's literally a branch. It comes from some start of code. And master is always like the canonical source of home games. And a PR is me saying I built another branch, maybe based off of some thing that happened in the master previously, and it kind of like went over here while master stayed over here, and I want to pull these changes from my branch into the master branch, and that's a pull request, and to be reviewed by somebody. In most cases, it's Yazeed.
Yes. Well, nice, man. That sounds so cool. Like, I'm very excited for that. When you told me about that on, I think, Saturday, you didn't even tell me about the settings thing. You just told me about the global home button. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We don't need to implement that on every
Yeah.
game. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Probably cuts down, like, an unknowable number of hours of hitting the same button.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem right to be like, hey, yeah, you're making a game, make sure you have this chunk of code in every game, because it needs to put a home button in. Or like we do that ourselves. Ugh, it just seems bad. So yeah, it had a negative effect in some cases, because we have existing games that put text and put things in that top left, but I made most of those games, so I can make the executive decision to just change them. So yeah.
I mean, we're going to need to go through quite a few of them, which, I mean, this is actually probably a good opportunity for me to switch over, because one of my goals this week is to update to the new package of the Squish Touch AS that we're going to make, which means I will need to go through every game and probably things that aren't games and make sure that they're updated properly and no longer erroring.
So,
I mean...
Sorry, go ahead.
That's like a pretty hefty undertaking, and I imagine that pull request is going to touch like almost every file in home games.
Well, it's just for colors, right? Like everything that uses colors.
But that's most things.
Everything in source/games pretty much will use colors.
And some things that aren't.
Like home games dashboard.
Yeah, make the dashboard uses colors.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything in the web client. I don't think so.
No. I don't think so.
I didn't think so either, but I'll have to check that too. So one of my goals for this week with the new version the Squish.js that we're going to make is to go through and make sure we use the new version of Squish.js, which, I mean, a lot of changes, but I think one of the major changes in there was separating out colors from the random color thing. Also adding in the random color with an exclusion list that you can say, like, I want a random color that's not one of these ones. So, super helpful for me in Square, and I imagine somebody else somewhere will likely enjoy that change as well.
Yeah, one day.
My other...
One day. No one looks at this except for us right now.
And then kind of the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully pop the PR with the Square changes, and maybe take a look at adding some animations to it and seeing how that looks. Like maybe a level change animation with your stuff, depending on like what the timing is, because there might be like a third commit to Square or not, depending.
I doubt any of my stuff will be ready for you to use for a while. Probably, I mean, realistically, I'm guessing like a month for it to be in master, because again, I won't be able to like do anything starting from next week.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably put out at least like what I have right now, and then maybe a couple other things too, and just see how it goes. Maybe I'll do a little bit of touch up somewhere else too. I don't know. Basically, like I've been playing Square every so often and just seeing like what feels weird, like what makes it feel like not a game. Yeah. Like what makes it feel not polished. I mean, like it doesn't look great. But
That's intentional.
Frogger didn't look great either. Yeah. I mean, it's more of like, how does it? Is it function okay? Like, is there a weirdness in the functioning? Stuff like that. So.
Well, good. I would play my games too if they were playable at all. They're all so bad.
That really feels like the Fairly Odd Parents, Timmy Turner's dad being like, "This is where that might
if I had
any."
Yeah. Where was I? Okay, so I have more stuff on here. I moved it around, so I guess I don't know what I still have to talk about. Fade animation, talked about that. I guess it's just the last couple things. Like I said, I need to test everything so I can, remove the text being eaten by the new home button stuff. And then I got text color working, so you can have non-black text now. So same using colors dot white, colors dot whatever. And that involved a change to Squish. Pretty simple, but one of those like small changes. I have an image scaling test. I posted a video on my Instagram, like my personal thing. I didn't actually post any developer updates because it wasn't big enough for that quite yet. It's not ready yet. I don't want to keep like putting content out for stuff that's not ready yet. But it's like a simple width and height, and then it's like blue and red. Like blue is plus, and then red is the minus sign to make something bigger or smaller. And so simple colored text there, and then I have some in the home info settings modal thing too. So colored text, another small change, but it adds to everything.
Nice. Okay.
Cool. And then to keep testing everything, to go back to sound, we had sound with the Waluigi sound to test like a while ago.
And sometimes we're just infinitely.
Yeah. And so I need to go and make sure that sound still works. And I think as a simple test, now that I have file uploads and I have whatever else, just making a jukebox app. Excuse me. So it's like we're all playing a song. Maybe we're in different places, but same places, different places in the same house or whatever. But like, I put up a song. Now we're both listening to it. Spotify does that, but it'd be kind of cool to implement that in home games just to test audio syncing across devices and stuff. So I kind of want to build that.
That makes sense. I feel like it'd be super useful. Like in a lot of games, for example, there's like a ping feature, so you can let ping something so other people pay attention to it too. That might be really useful for us in home games, just being able to be like, boop, and it makes a noise on everyone's phone.
And if we can get a song playing, like I don't know if you've ever done like whole room audio on Alexa or Google Home or whatever, but you can have all the devices sync up and they all just play the song at the exact same time. So like I could walk from one room to another room and they're both playing the same song, but I can't tell that they're different devices. It's just like so synchronized. I guess it's just super hard to do that, I think, and it's kind of impressive. So if we can get anything even close to that on home games, that'd be cool.
I mean, the fact that your example is a multi-billion-dollar company's product, and we're like, "Hello, everyone, welcome to Patch Notes, the home games podcast." But I mess it up pretty regularly. Like, I mean, that'd be pretty impressive.
But yeah, that's all really, I guess, for my stuff. Bunch of little changes that add up to cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm really excited for a lot of these changes. Like, I'm super duper excited for a lot of these changes.
You can check out the branch. It's the pretty branch of web, and then the big changes branch of home games, and I think it's the pretty branch of Squish. It's quite a few different things that I have, but if you want to try it out.
Nice. One thing on here that I'm seeing is a little comment on your notes says test everything. Now, are those tests, or are you just saying you're gonna mess with stuff and see if it keeps working?
No, like I said last week, I need to go through every game and make sure it actually works. Like if it's on that dashboard, you need to be able to do something with it. Like for example, the home button test was originally used to test if you can click the background, it would go to home. But that's kind of dead now because your home button does that. So now that whole thing is just a hack. So I'm just going to remove it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like we kind of have to like take a step back, go back through all the historic stuff we have, and just kind of like bring it up to speed a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally just going to go
next week.
Click everything in the dashboard and play it. And if it doesn't work, I'll fix it. And if it's not worth saving, then I'll kill it.
Okay. I mean, I think we might run into like merge conflicts maybe, because if you're going to be going through all the games and making that change, then I'm going to be going through all the games and making the changes for the new Squish JS. Might run into each other, but it should be minor anyway.
Yeah.
So and that's fine.
My stuff will be, I won't actually do these things for weeks, so it gives you some time to...
Yeah. Oh, I see. So, I mean, like, there's a chance that I could just take a look at these games and try to fix them too.
If you want to. I mean, I can take that. It kind of goes into the whole thing, like we need tasks with assignees, so we don't, like, do the same work. But, but yeah, it's a thing. But I can do it, I mean,
I think once we get a little more organized, we'll probably make, like, issues in GitHub and start using that to track stuff, as opposed to just being like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know, I became
No, that's exactly what we do every weekend. Also, we've been talking about home game stuff for an hour. This is insane. This is our longest home games chunk ever.
There's a lot of home game stuff.
Yeah,
man.
it's crazy.
Especially from last week where I like did nothing. So I'm excited that there's a lot of changes this week.
Yeah, well, I intentionally put a bunch of stuff in here because I won't have anything next week that's like code. I know all of our...
I mean, like, we'll probably have to take some time back and start discussing some stuff then. Because one of the things we did want to start doing is kind of like breaking down the project into like little pieces and talking about it.
Yeah.
So it might be a good opportunity to like, these next few weeks to start to do that.
Yeah. And one thing, when all this stuff is done and all the changes I'm making and you're making are done, I want to go and do a more technical, like a very technical video of stuff. Like, if you think about this podcast is kind of just an in-depth us talking about stuff, but then there's developer updates, which is, in my head, is just anybody who makes a game for home games can send us a video of them demoing it, and then we'll put it up on our channel. It'll be like a portfolio for people or whatever. But it's also just a way to kind of talk about specific technical things in a general way. But having a technical video, like, here's how the squisher works, here's how it traverses the tree, here's the logic of how this is rendered, like actual descriptions. And then maybe get people, because we have a lot of views on our developer update, and I'm thinking that people are interested in the technical stuff and not so much the like, look at this thing, I clicked it,
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the people who are making games are probably going to be more interested in the technical side of like how to make a game, as opposed to like, I made a game.
I don't know if the people watching this are the same people who would make games. I guess I don't know what our audience actually looks like. But
that is true. We haven't quite figured out demographics.
Yeah. Oh, it's 18 to 34 males. If you're interested in our YouTube stats, it's like a.
That's only like 70% of people who use the internet. Or
yeah,
whatever.
it's a huge portion of people who use the internet.
That can't be
probably
true.
It's 100%.
Like 100% of people use the internet. So whatever I said is obviously wrong.
It's like
it's probably whatever. It's like a pretty large percentage of the population.
Yeah. Well, in terms of like people on YouTube who would click on ads, I guess it's mostly 18 to 34 men, but there's like it's like 55-45 of men to women, so it's actually not like a super crazy one-sided thing. Anyway, in case you're interested in our demographics.
Did you say 55, 45?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in my head, that didn't add up to 100. And then when I was really thinking about what I was going to say, I was like, that's probably 100%. There's no other way. There's no other demographic possible. That's everyone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what our audience looks like. I guess I don't know if those people are interested in making games, or they're just interested in watching us talk, or if they're interested in watching us do technical videos, or if they're not interested at all. You know what I mean? I have no idea. Yeah, that's I guess it for my home game stuff. Longest ever home game stuff.
That's super good. I'm also done with home game stuff. Are you ready to move on to what's up, what's happening?
What's happening?
I think there's a difference in how I take notes, because I call it what's happening, but I see you call it what's up.
Because it's called what's up.
And
if you call it what's happening, you're incorrect.
that's good to know. I'll keep track of that and I'll remember.
No, it's whatever. It's just, yeah, I call it what's up.
You've been talking a lot in the last few minutes, so
my throat hurts
for a little bit. So for me, most of my what's up has just been dog. It's changed pretty much everything about my day-to-day life. Like, I used to wake up like not at 7 a.m. to go on a walk first thing in the morning, and then again at 11, and then again at 3, and then again after work. So it's been like just a pretty big change. Kind of, people who don't know, I got a dog 2 weeks ago.
Like a week and a half.
It's been a week or 2 weeks. Yeah, like a week and a half. It really has not been that long, but she got a respiratory infection. Probably not because of me. It's not like I introduced her to a lot of other dogs, but she got a respiratory infection. So I've been trying to deal with that, and it's been just like, it's been a circus with me trying to get her to eat the goddamn medication. It is so frustrating sometimes how smart she is. So, to give you an idea, I have to give her a pill 3 times a day, every day, until I run out of pills, basically. She has figured out pretty much every way I've tried to sneak them in. So I've been like, every few days I've had to find a new and inventive way to get her to eat this medication. First it was I would give her a whole treat with the thing on top of it, and then she would eat it all at once. Then she got smart and she cracked the thing in half in her mouth and then just let the other half drop out so that she could see if the pill was on there. And then she'd eat the half and leave the pill. So then I switched to cheese, which my dog throws up every time I give her cheese. So she's just thrown up 2 times on my rug. I don't know why she decides to throw up on the rug instead of literally all of the tile. 90% of my 70, well, like almost my whole house is tile except for like a couple rugs, and she chooses the rugs to throw up on. So no more cheese for her. I don't know, man. Next is peanut butter. If that stops working, I don't know. It's just been a struggle.
Is it like a capsule, like a pill?
Yeah, it's an antibiotic, so it's like a little pill that I'm supposed to give her. And it's just been like, she knows what it looks like, what it tastes like, and what it smells like. So getting her to eat it has gone from being like, come here, little lady, boop, 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 to being now just like, fucking eat this thing. I got a little frustrated today with her, actually, and I definitely did the, like, she spit it out, and I grabbed it, and I was like, put this in your mouth. And I put it in her mouth, and she kept like using her tongue to just push it out, and then pick it up again, like and she'd spit it out again, until I finally got tired and got a little bit of peanut butter and tried that, and that one went down.
Sounds frustrating.
She's very smart. I mean, like, I'm definitely never raised a dog before, so all this is new for me. So people who own a dog are probably like, this idiot, you're doing it all wrong. Also, don't scare the bejesus out of your dog by putting it on your finger and being like, put it in your mouth. But I'm just an idiot trying to help this dog out, and sometimes she doesn't listen. So.
Post your dog parenting tips at HomeGamesIO on Twitter or in our YouTube comments.
Yeah, how to get a dog to take meds. That's pretty big. The other dog-related story I have is that she loves or hates rabbits. I don't know what the dog equivalent when it comes to wanting to kill them is.
Does she want to eat them or just kill them?
I don't know. Actually, I haven't let her like catch a rabbit, but she definitely turns her brain off when she sees a rabbit. Like she doesn't listen to commands. She doesn't listen to her own name anymore. It definitely is like she sees a rabbit. She's like, I'm gonna kill this thing, and I have to just hold her and plant myself until the rabbit runs away, and she can finally be like, it's out of reach. But then she turns and looks at me like, why did you hold me back, bro?
Yeah, crazy when dogs act like animals. You're just like, oh god. I forgot you're like used to be a wolf.
It's less that. It's more like you think in your head like she's well behaved so often, like she's well behaved for like 27 hours a day or whatever, and then when she sees a rabbit, she's like, I'm gonna kill this thing. And it's like it's literally like she doesn't remember who I am, because it'll be like I'm standing there like holding the leash like, stop going, and she's just like, I'm gonna kill it. And she's like, I'm like calling her name, I'm saying like regular commands that I normally use. I say no, like I don't know. I even tried to like Cesar Milan like touch her and make a noise, and she was definitely not interested in me at all. Like she completely just like, I could do whatever I wanted to her at that moment, and she probably would not even stop focusing on the rabbit. It's incredible. Yeah. It's like she's like the John Wick of dogs when she sees a rabbit. She's like incredible focus. She's killed 3 men with a pencil. Like I don't know how to break her from it. There's some things that I haven't quite figured out with dogs yet. If you haven't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a week and a half in, you're doing all right. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, she seems to be doing well. She eats well. She moves well. She's been to the groomer. She really liked the groomer. Afraid of the hairdresser or the hairdryer.
Nice.
But yeah, she's a really good girl. She's really sweet. Really sweet dog. If I had to give her an accent in my head, she speaks with a posh English accent because she's a little lady and doesn't like getting wet or dirty. Like, I don't know.
Nice. Has she been running with you?
Yeah, well, so I can't run her right now because she has a respiratory infection. So she can't run. She really shouldn't be exercising too much. But we do go on walks because she doesn't pee or poop anywhere besides on walks. So I have to take her on walks 4 times a day to do her business. So it's kind of like a leisurely stroll, and she takes breaks, and I let her like, chill. And then when she sees rabbit, she's like, I'm totally fine. Time to go at Mach 10. Yeah. But on Saturday, I took her to visit my mom, and my mom has like a nice backyard with a lawn, and she really likes grass, and she was rolling around like a crazy person, and she learned how to play fetch. So
very nice.
Yeah, she hasn't fully grasped the concept of like giving me the ball. She mostly just like grabs the ball, runs back towards me, then lays down on her belly with the ball like in her mouth, and I have to reach into her mouth to grab it. But she's also like super pumped up because grass and also ball. So it's like I'm putting my hand in the mouth of like a dog that may decide like, I'm gonna close my mouth now.
Every dog I've ever had does that when playing fetch. They never give it back.
No, but she really likes when I throw the ball, but she also doesn't want me to take the ball to throw the ball. Yeah. It's like the old meme of like no take, only throw, whatever, of the dog and like the stick or whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
Interesting tales. I'm hoping one day I can slow down with the dog stories because it's kind of just consumed every minute of my day, aside from working. This dog has.
Yeah. You're a dog parent. It's kind of expected. Especially because first-time dog parent. I
really hate the term like fur baby, but I get it. Like I actually like understand what they mean by like it's kind of like a baby all the time. Like especially when she's sick, she doesn't want to be very far away from me. Like I actually imagine she's not very far. She's probably like on the other side of this wall, like just around the corner, laying on the floor, waiting for me to turn around.
You can understand something and still hate it. So yeah, I understand fur baby. I still think it's the worst thing that people say. Unironically.
I mean, it's the worst thing people say. This thing is bad, though.
It's the worst thing people say.
Nah, enough of my dog talk. What about you, man? What's happening?
Less interesting, emotional, cool stories. I've just been playing video games and watching TV. So, I've been playing Yakuza 0, and I watched the finale of Devs, and I am no longer as hyped on Devs as I used to be. Still good, but I don't love it.
If I watched every episode but the ending, would I love it?
I think even if you watched the whole thing, like if you're gonna watch it at all, you should watch the whole thing. It's 8 hours total, and it's mostly great. Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
I'll try it out.
Yeah, it's mostly great. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it again in like a year and I'll appreciate it in a different way. But at the moment, I'm kind of just burnt on the ending. So.
That makes sense. Okay.
Anyway, glad that's over. Not because I wanted it to end, but because it's something that I like checked off my list. Like finished watching devs, and then started playing Yakuza 0, and that'll take me probably like 40 hours to finish because it seems like one of those games where I'm like watching every cutscene and it's like super ridiculous, and you do karaoke within the first 30 minutes of the game. Like in the tutorial, you do karaoke, and it's like, have you ever played Yakuza?
I've never.
Or
played
Yakuza?
I think I've watched Donkey play Yakuza. I think, or Yakuza.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it, but yeah, basically you're a dude. You walk around, and it's like GTA without guns. You fight dudes and do missions, and
you get like street cred. Or,
I don't
like respect.
I don't know what like that mechanic is. Like I'm only a couple hours in. Like I don't know what the kind of like ranking system is, or if there is one, but particularly in this game because there's like story related stuff to that. Yeah, it's a cool game. It's like I said, one of those games where I can just spend time. Excuse me, and just play it for a very long time. So I like those kind of games. Not like moving from game to game and just trying to whatever, like just sitting down with one and like playing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to finish Doom, but like I told you on Saturday, I have not finished Doom yet.
If you don't finish Doom within the next like 2 weeks, you're never gonna finish Doom.
No.
How's Dark Souls going, bud?
I'm so excited to play Doom.
How's Dark Souls going?
I never even played Doom.
Didn't you? You started it and you were like, "Oh, I need a controller," but you were like 20 minutes in.
Yeah, okay, I did. You're right. I did start it, and then you guys were like, "Don't play without a controller," and I was playing without a controller, and I was like, "This is terrible." And you guys were like, "Yeah, just go to." And then I got the like thing for the controller, and then my brother was like, "Can I use it?" Because I just never played Dark Souls after that.
Yeah, exactly. You never played it again. Is my point. You're never gonna play Doom again if you don't finish Doom.
I'm morally opposed to Dark Souls, though.
Why? The game is so good.
I'm trying to cover myself up a little bit. Let me have this one.
But yeah, once Cyberpunk comes, I guess that's the real thing. You have to play it, or you have to beat Doom before Cyberpunk. Because once Cyberpunk comes out, you're not gonna play anything.
No, I'm just gonna play Cyberpunk. You're right. That's the game I'm really, really excited for. I'm really excited for Doom too, but like Cyberpunk, I've been like hyped up for that game now since I first saw the announcement.
Well, just know that if you don't finish Doom Eternal, it's because you couldn't beat it anyway. I spent an hour and a half on one checkpoint towards the end of that game. It's actually like super frustrating. So, I get it, if you can't beat it, it's all good.
You're also a way better like Twitch reflex like shooter player than me. Oh my god, what if I actually can't beat this game? You know what's really funny about that is I actually like the opposite of a lot of people, where it's like if somebody gives me a challenge by calling me bad at something, I'm never like, well, I'll just show them that I'm not bad. I'm like, shoot, am I actually bad? I have like such weak mental, it's ridiculous. Like right at this point in my life, I'm like, what if I can't beat Doom? How do I face Joseph if I'm like, I couldn't do it?
If you can kill the Marauder well, then I think that's the hardest part of that game.
Well is not what I did. Well is the opposite of what I did. Well, it describes how I kill the imps.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. That like the last boss I beat on the first try, but on a checkpoint up to that last boss, I was stuck for an hour and a half. So just keep that in mind, It gets better after that checkpoint.
If I do end up beating the game and I don't get stuck on the checkpoint for an hour, I want you to know I'm gonna flex really.
That's fine.
On that episode of
I want to see you win. If you have to show off a little bit, that's worth it.
I appreciate it. Do you have anything else for what's happening?
No, it's pretty light this week. Just again playing games, watching devs, and just a bunch of home game stuff.
Another day in isolation.
I'm so tired.
I think the whole world is a little bit. But...
Well, for me, it'll be better in a week. And again, not to like be weird and secretive, but I literally can't say whatever until next week. So next week, I'll have things to talk about. Life will be different. But yeah, hopefully that'll be enough to break me out of my current funk, because I'm in a funk.
Yeah. It's gonna be a long episode, I can tell, because the game oh man. All right, let's just keep going. All right, song of the week.
Song of the week.
John, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So I listened to "Man on the Moon" by Powers, which was your song of the week last week. It was okay. It reminded me of like Imagine Dragons if it was softer. You know? Something about the singer.
Yeah, I could see that actually. It's like a little bit of like quieter pop.
Yeah.
Like Imagine Dragons.
It was cool. I mean, it's like the kind of music that I expect to just hear in the background. It's like the kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it describes my taste in music. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So very on brand for you. And my actual song of the week is, I didn't put it on the notes because I wanted to kind of see in my head. I thought we would do something kind of stupid about 420 and we wouldn't say anything about the actual day. And then I would like have some joke where I was like, so an unrelated thing, my song of the week is Marijuana by Kid Cudi, because my song of the week is Marijuana by Kid Cudi. I was originally, so like we talked about last week, there's this song that he put out called Leader of the Delinquents last week. And that song is pretty good. Like, it's an older song that he originally, I guess, recorded one verse for in like 2012. And then did another verse, and I think they touched up, like they remastered it or whatever. And he's like rapping on it. And it's a cool song. It's just not like my favorite. Like, I couldn't make it my song of the week. I just didn't love it like that. But it got me listening to Kid Cudi. And it's very little on the nose maybe. But song of the week, Marijuana by Kid Cudi.
I will listen to this week's song of the week and last week's song of the week this week, and I will give an update.
You sort of listen to Fleetwood Mac.
I didn't know you wanted to like downplay it. I messed that up then.
Right? No. We originally talked about because you said we were like spitballing ideas when we were playing Call of Duty on Saturday. It was like, oh, we'll talk about a bunch of stuff that's weeds, like dandelions or whatever, but not weed, and like be kind of dumb about that whole thing. So I didn't know what to expect. So I just had that in my mind going in with some sort of a joke. But in my head, I don't think any planned joke that I ever try ever goes well. So I'm kind of glad I didn't do it in that way.
You and I definitely don't have like the stand-up comedian jokes. It's more of like playing off each
other. I can't write a joke. It's just cringe waiting to happen.
Yeah. So my song of the week is "Young and Beautiful" by Lana Del Rey, and the reason for that is one of my favorite bands, Glass Animals. Their lead singer is doing like every so often he'll just kind of do a cover for a different song. And this week I saw he did a cover, or maybe not this week. He did a cover for Lana Del Rey's "Young and Beautiful," and I was like, that one I was like, oh wow, this is actually like a pretty good cover. I mean, it's definitely that like his cover is more my style than Lana Del Rey's like original version of the song, but the original version of the song is really good too, and I have listened to it a lot this week.
Nice.
So it is
I have listened, like I've heard Lana Del Rey's voice before, and I really only know the song "Video Games." Compare this song to that song, like.
I don't even know if I've ever heard the song "Video Games." It's more in the line of like it's like a slowed down version of "Summertime Sadness," which I know.
Oh yeah.
It's like it's way slower than you think it is. It's like a super slow, like sad song. A little.
Video Games is pretty slow. I mean, that's like maybe I don't know.
I've never heard Video Games, so I have no.
I'll
idea.
listen.
I can't compare it to that.
I'll listen to this and report back. But I do kind of like Lana Del Rey, like especially her voice. So. At least I know who this is this week.
I really. That's true. I really like her as a singer. I think she's really good. It's one one of those things where it's like when the lead singer from Glass Animals was covering it, he was like, the reason I'm covering this is because I think she's one of the best singers / songwriters like of the last like 20 years or something. He said, and I kind of have to agree with it. She is really good.
Wow.
She's better than I will ever be.
Probably.
I mean, that's a really low bar. I'm like terrible, but like it's just true.
Cool. Well, yeah, that'll be on my list for next week. And you also still have to listen to Fleetwood Mac from last week.
Oh my god, I did listen to Fleetwood Mac.
Wait, then that was my song last week.
Yeah, my bad. I listened to a couple of songs by Fleetwood Mac. I did not like Fleetwood Mac, and I don't think I knew most of the songs.
Wait, you didn't like what? Which one?
I didn't like whatever. I don't remember exactly which songs I listened to because I listened to them on like the day after we recorded. But I'm not super into Fleetwood Mac. I did not like it.
Which songs though? Because I didn't like most of them. You gotta. Like Everywhere was my song of the week last week.
Oh look, I don't know if I listened to Everywhere, but I definitely listened to some of the other songs you recommended. Let me take a look. If I look at the titles, I definitely listened to Landslide. I think I listened to Rihanna.
Oh yeah.
I listened to Go Your Own Way.
I don't like that song.
And maybe Dreams. Basically, I just picked their and The Chain, the 2004 remaster. Basically, I just listened to their most listened to songs on Spotify. Not super into them. Interestingly, listening to them made me want to listen to Bon Jovi. So I listened to a couple songs by Bon Jovi, which I like a lot more.
Bon Jovi's not bad.
Yeah. So I don't actually have like a funny lyric like I did for most of the other songs, Joseph, you listed, but
yeah, less goofy material in Fleetwood Mac than there is in E40. Not so many quotables.
Yeah, that is,
it's a high bar.
That is true. All right, man, you ready to move on to what I have planned?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so this is a game, and it's called Weed, or Undefined. So basically, what it's going to work is I'm going to say, and it's either going to be weed, a type of marijuana, weed, like a dandelion.
Okay.
Well, I made it up.
Okay.
Right? And we're going to see how many you get right.
So my options are weed or weed?
Or neither.
Okay.
And to make this a little bit easier, because there's like an infinite number of weeds out there. It's specifically to like our hometown.
Okay. Smart. How am I gonna? Okay, I'll say weed for weed, and then not weed for not weed, and then nothing for nothing.
Weed for weed. I think you could say like weed, a weed, or
I could say not weed.
No, however you want to specify is good with me.
Figure it out.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you one. You let me know what it is. Common bed straw.
That's a weed.
That is a weed. All right. I'm gonna start kind of like easy, and we're gonna work our way into it. Plush berry.
That's weed.
That is weed. All right. White window.
Are you sure it's not White Widow? Because not that I would.
It is White Widow. My bad.
Not that I would know, but that's weed.
All right. London Rocket.
Ooh. I'm gonna say that's weed.
No, it's
that's a good
plant. It's a weed. Actually.
London Rocket. A man in a trench coat outside a Big Ben would be like, "Oi, bro, you want some of that London Rocket?" I refuse to believe that's a plant.
Other names for it are rocket mustard and tumble mustard. It's in the mustard family.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Native to the Southwest. Tree of Heaven.
That's got to be a weed.
It is a weed. It actually is a tree. It's a whole tree, but considered a weed. So, there you go. Prickly lettuce.
That's made up.
It's a weed, dude.
Prickly lettuce. What kind of that's so uncreative.
Prickly lettuce, I guarantee you've seen it pretty much everywhere. It's like one of the most common weeds you'll see in the Southwest.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks so ugly. I see it all over. All right.
This is hard. Because that for sure.
Right? That's why I was like, this should be good.
Good.
Sorry, I had some picked out, and I'm looking through the list again, trying to find them. All right, I'm not gonna actually say this on the podcast. I'll tell you
Okay.
later, though. Panama Red.
That's got to be a weed. Yeah, a weed.
It is weed.
Really?
It is marijuana.
Okay. Panama
Red.
Red. Sounds like a rock band.
Form of sativa. It kind of does, yeah. The problem is that some of the weed ones are a little bit too obvious. Like if I said Fruity Pebbles, it's like
yeah, or like Minnesota Thunder F word. It's like I wonder what that is.
The Alaskan Thunder F word is actually one that I was like I can't say this one on here. Let's see. Sorry. We'll do one more and then we'll call it. I'm trying to looking for one that I saw earlier, and I was like, "That's very funny." Oh God, come on, Yazeed. Oh, puncture vine.
I think that's a weed.
That is a weed. All right.
Oh yeah, I got like 60%, something. Pretty not bad.
Something like that, yeah. I didn't even have to use any made up ones. Those were just all legitimate. Like
yeah, the prickly lettuce or whatever. That's a disappointment on many levels.
Yeah, there's also I didn't want to use this one because it's too on the nose, but one's called Nut-All's Poverty Weed, and I think that's just very funny.
What's the first word?
I don't know who names these things.
What's that first word? Nut-all?
Nut-alls. It's Nuttall''S. Like a person's name is.
Oh, Nuddles.
Nuttall.
Weird.
I think it's like Nut-alls though, or like Nut-talls.
All right.
Because there's two T's. There's two T's.
And that's a weed, or that's weed or a weed?
That's a weed.
Okay.
That's a weed.
Good to know. That's a fun idea.
Yeah. Thank you. I was thinking about doing this tonight, and I had some time, and I put it together, and I was like, I hope this goes well. And I was like, there's always like two options. Either it's like balls flat, and like Joseph gets none of them, or like I can't read. Like my brain turns off, and I can no longer read. It just goes poorly.
Yeah.
But that's all I had, man.
Me too. I am exhausted after all that. But that's all I have. Our longest one with this new structure. It's an hour and a half.
It is not even that much longer. We talked about Homegames for like an hour, so it's been 30 minutes to close it out.
Super crazy. But yeah, that's all I had.
Right on. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. You can catch us at homegames.io.
It's true.
The website.
It is a website.
We also have a Twitter.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter. Or don't. Post on comment. Oh, the gentleman who I told you about last week, who I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like a robot, because this guy is like, great content within like a minute of uploading the video. And he's like, the most recent one, which I thought was hilarious. We kept saying it to each other on Saturday. But the dude's comment was, great content, keep up the amazing content. And like the word content must do something for whatever algorithm this dude thinks he's playing into. Anyway, I reported that comment for spam, and then they all got removed. So I think I'm fighting the good fight on some level, but yeah. Anyway, leave a comment is what I was getting at. Dude. Not the comment like that.
Leave a comment that's, although it won't be really funny. See, if we get like a lot of fans, I could definitely see them like spamming like great content, keep up the great content. And just completely making it impossible to figure out which one's a bot and which one's just animals.
It's true. That'd be actually pretty funny. But yeah, it'll just be a friend meme for now. Great content. Keep up the amazing content.
Yeah, I think the word content for me is now forever tainted.
Especially when you mess up something. Like if you... It'll be good.
All right, everyone.
All right, sorry, didn't mean to derail the outro. Here I am doing it again.
Good. This is just very funny. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening and or watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.